How can you prepare for your IELTS exam in less time and achieve a higher score? That's what I'd like to talk to you about today. I've spent the last 6 years searching for the best ways to pass this test, and I've taken it a number of times myself. Actually, the first time it was to study in the UK, although I live in London, I'm originally from Kazakhstan. And I'd love to share all my insights with you and hopefully make your journey a little bit easier. You can find links to all the resources I'm going to mention today in my free IELTS study plan, which I'm going to link in the description. It's Asia. Let's get started. And what we're going to start with is perhaps not what you were expecting. It's IELTS Writing, the section where most people, statistically, achieve their lowest score. But you can do very well if you prepare the right way. So, the first question is, why is IELTS writing so difficult for most? Well, because it's like an iceberg. The top above water is the problems students see, such as I don't know what to write about or I struggle to finish in 60 minutes. But there is an even bigger layer of challenges hidden underwater. These are things examiners assess that you may not even be aware of. For example, if not all parts of the task have been addressed, it's a big problem. Or maybe your position is not clear, or linking between your ideas is mechanical. So, what do examiners assess? Well, they use 4 criteria to mark your answers. Your vocabulary, they check how many words you know and how accurately you use them. Grammar, or how many different grammatical structures you use and how many mistakes you make. These 2 criteria directly reflect your English skills. What surprises a lot of people is that IELTS examiners also assess your writing skills. These are task achievement or response, basically how well you meet all the requirements of the task, and also the structure and flow, sometimes called coherence and cohesion. Well, always called like that in official documents. That's if your answer is logically organized, if ideas are connected and follow one from another. To fulfill these requirements, you need to write good answers, like a good essay. And quite a lot of candidates who know vocabulary and grammar well enough to get a band 7 may not get this score because of their writing skills. So let's take some band 9 sample answers and I'll show you what really matters. Your task 2 determines 2/3 of your score, so let's start with it. This task is the same for both academic and general training students. The difference in topics is really minor. So here is our topic. In many countries, people do not recycle waste materials such as bottles and newspapers. What are the reasons for this? What could be done to solve this problem? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. Write at least 250 words. So we have a problem. People do not recycle waste. And you need to give causes of this problem or reasons and possible solutions. Here is our sample answer. First of all, the structure. We have 4 paragraphs, a relatively short introduction, 2 longer body paragraphs, and a relatively short conclusion. That's a classic structure for IELTS. You may have 3 body paragraphs occasionally, but other than that, each task 2 essay should look like this. Now, what do you write about in each part? In the introduction, begin by presenting the topic. Recycling materials, such as glass, plastic, and cartons, is an important practice that helps to reduce our impact on the environment. Many people across the world, however, do not recycle their waste and send everything to landfill. And then you should make your position or opinion very clear. In our case, we just need to give the possible causes of the problem and solutions. So that's what we're going to do in the last sentence of the introduction. This essay will discuss why this might be the case and how this problem can be alleviated. But if your task is asking for your opinion, you should give it in the introduction. Now, we need to give the causes of the problem and solutions. The first paragraph describes the causes. And the first sentence of this paragraph, called the topic sentence, should tell the reader what the whole paragraph is about. The reasons for the lack of recycling seem to be quite simple. And then we give our causes, explain each of them, give examples. That's called developing your ideas, and it's very important for a good score. So we have two. Here is the first. Firstly, in some countries, official recycling programs either do not exist or they are relatively new. People, therefore, are generally unaware of the importance of recycling their refuse. Being used to seeing all the rubbish go into the same bin, they simply continue to do the same without putting too much thought into it. The idea, it's quite simple, and a little explanation. That's all you need. Here is the second idea. Even those who understand the environmental benefits of recycling, so I'm linking the ideas, may still be unwilling to inconvenience themselves with sorting their waste. After all, in order to recycle something as simple as a plastic bottle or a newspaper, one needs to keep a separate bin at home or find a public recycling dustbin when outside. 2 ideas per paragraph are enough as long as you develop each idea. In the second body paragraph, we do the same about the solutions. A topic sentence that introduces the solutions is: to encourage people to recycle more, a comprehensive public campaign is required. The solutions should then cover all the causes from the first body paragraph. Please pause the video if you'd like to read the whole second body paragraph. And we're going to talk about the conclusion. That's where you restate your opinion, if it's required in your task, and summarize your main arguments. In our case, we're simply summarizing the causes and solutions once again. To conclude, it is the lack of awareness about the benefits of recycling and reluctance for people to sort their refuse that prevents them from engaging with this useful practice. These are the causes and now the solutions. When they fully understand its advantages and can recycle their rubbish at home and outside easily and quickly, I believe that many will choose to do the right thing. In a good IELTS essay, there should be no irrelevant ideas, no contradictions. Ideas should be connected. It should be clear to the examiner how you transition from one idea to the next. You shouldn't jump from one place to another. You should also use linking words. However, firstly, therefore, after all, the next step also to conclude. These words link your ideas together, and the examiner wants to see a variety of them, not just and, but also. You should also use references. These are pronouns like these, it, they, and synonyms. So use them to avoid repeating the same words over and over. While preparing for IELTS writing, you should learn all the requirements and how to meet them. You should also learn how to answer each type of essay. There are 5: advantages and disadvantages, 2 views in your opinion essay, or agree-disagree, problems and solutions, like in our example, and 2 direct questions. Learn how to answer each of them. I really find that IELTS writing requires the most preparation, and that's why in my courses we concentrate on IELTS writing and learn how to answer each type of task and meet each requirement. Well, and IELTS speaking as well. So if you'd like to check out my courses, I'll link them in the video description box below. Now let's have a look at IELTS Writing Task 1. Task 1 for academic and general training students is very different. Right now we're going to talk about academic task 1. If you are taking IELTS general training, click on the video timeline at the bottom and select the next chapter to jump straight to task 1 for general training students. IELTS academic writing task 1. You'll be required to describe a chart, a table, a map, or a diagram. The most common types are one or several charts, or a chart and a table like in our task. Similarly to task 2, let me show you a sample answer and explain what really matters. The task is: the chart and table below show the average number of children born to one woman and the average age of women when they had their first child in 2 countries between 1920 and 2019. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. And we have a line chart showing an average number of children born to one woman in the UK and Kazakhstan, and a table showing an average age at which women in these countries had their first child. Please pause the video to study the task more thoroughly. And here is the sample answer. It's shorter than task 2 and only has 3 paragraphs. Even though there are a couple of options as to what structure you choose, this is the most common one, I would say. In the first paragraph, you introduce the task. The line graph illustrates how many children women had on average in the UK and Kazakhstan from 1920 to 2019, while the table provides a woman's average age of the first-time motherhood for the same countries and time period. Basically, we paraphrase the task, just don't repeat it, paraphrase. And then give an overview. This is a very important part, where in 1 or 2 sentences, you should state the main thing you've learned in the task. This is a very short summary. If you don't have an overview, you're gonna lose a lot of marks. So here is one. Over time, a general trend of deferring childbearing to a later age and having fewer children overall can be observed in both countries, although women in Kazakhstan had their first child earlier and had more children than their UK counterparts. Then you have 2 body paragraphs where you describe the data. The most obvious way is to describe the chart in one paragraph and the table in the other. But you should not just report every detail mechanically every year or simply say that numbers went up or down. You need to analyze the information, select the most important features or most important numbers, and explain why they are important. And then use the figures to support your statements. Let's read the paragraph. In 1920, the average British woman gave birth to approximately 2 children, while the Kazakhstani average was around 3.5. So we're starting at the beginning, which is logical for a line chart, and compare the numbers in 2 countries. In both countries, the birth rate continued to increase until the 1960s. I'm presenting the trend, at which point it peaked at around 2.7 and 4.5 children per woman, respectively. And these are the key figures that support this description. Between 1960 and 2019, the numbers generally declined, with the end of the period displaying a rate of approximately 1.8 children per woman in the UK and 3 in Kazakhstan. Again, the trend, and the key figures. I haven't included every number, but I've still covered the whole period from the beginning until the end. In the second body paragraph, we're presenting the data from the table in a similar manner. Please pause the video and read it. You've probably noticed that the vocabulary in this task is quite specific. So you may need to learn certain words to describe data, increases, decreases, percentages, and so on. I think it's so important that in my courses, I even created a Task 1 vocabulary where students can learn those phrases. But if you're preparing on your own, read sample answers, write down new words, and learn them. And definitely prepare for different types of tasks. Now, to avoid the part for general training students, go to the video timeline below and click on the chapter Speaking. IELTS Writing Task 1 for General Training Students, a letter. Let me show you one and explain what really matters here. The task is: a friend has written to you asking for your advice about whether to spend a year before starting university traveling or to work for the year. Write back to your friend in your email. Say why he or she wouldn't enjoy traveling. Explain why getting a job is a good idea. Suggest types of jobs he or she could do. Write at least 150 words. Do not include any addresses. Begin your letter as follows. Dear, can you see the 3 bullet points in the task? You absolutely must address each bullet point in your letter, usually 1 per paragraph. Here is a sample answer. Dear Monica, I'm using the first name to address a friend. In a more formal letter, you should use the surname, Dear Mr. Black. Or if you don't know the name, Dear Sir or Madam. Then you may have either 5 paragraphs in your letter or 3. We have 5. In the first paragraph, you give an opening statement presenting the purpose of writing this letter. Don't forget to be friendly when you're writing to a friend. It was great to hear from you, and congratulations on your brilliant exam results. I'm sure you can't wait to start university, but you've asked for my thoughts on what you should do over the next 12 months, and I honestly believe getting a job is the answer. Then 3 paragraphs describing the 3 bullet points. Write several sentences on each bullet point, even if you could cover it in just 1. Here's the first. Say why he or she wouldn't enjoy traveling. Although traveling seems like such an attractive option, I'm convinced that you wouldn't enjoy it. You've never been the type of person who liked going without home comforts, so I can't imagine you sleeping in cheap student hostels. Pretty strong but very clear. Similarly, we cover the bullet point 2 and 3. Please pause the video now and read them. After that, we'll write a closing statement. Of course, it's up to you, but believe me, a year's work experience is the best. And a sign off. Take care, Nicole. Perfect for an informal letter. 2 things are key in general training task 1. The first is purpose. What's the purpose of your letter? It should be very clear throughout. All the information should be relevant. At the same time, you should cover all the bullet points without forgetting anything. Second, the tone. If you're writing a letter to a friend, it's going to sound very different to a letter you're writing to your teacher or your work colleague or a newspaper. It's not just the information you include. It's also about the words and grammar you use in your letter. You may be required to write an informal letter, a formal letter, or something in between, what we call a semi-formal letter. And examiners check if you can feel what style of writing you're using. In this task, trust me, choosing the correct tone and then maintaining this level of formality throughout your letter are crucial. I find that that's exactly what many students struggle with. So you should definitely read some formal and informal letters and learn specific phrases that we often use in letters, such as, "Should you require any further information, do not hesitate to contact me," or "Warmest regards" to finish an informal letter. In my courses, students get a vocabulary with all these phrases for different types of letters, and so they can compare them to better understand which phrases are formal and which are informal. If you're preparing on your own, definitely pay attention to your style. Now, let's dive into IELTS Speaking. This test is intense, with what feels like a barrage of questions and the stress of a face-to-face exam. Let's discuss what's important here and how you can prepare to improve your performance. Examiners use 4 criteria to assess your speaking: fluency, or if you're speaking without effort or hesitation, and coherence, or developing and linking ideas similar to IELTS writing. Then vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Not your accent, which is totally okay, but how you pronounce words and sounds, your intonation. Basically, whether a regular native speaker could easily understand you. To score higher, it's essential to talk enough. Otherwise, there is not much to assess. For instance, do you like cooking? No, I never cook. I hate cooking. Perhaps it's true, but there is not much English to assess there. Extend your answer. Actually, I quite enjoy cooking, although I don't cook much. I still live with my parents, and my mom is a perfect cook. So I just let her prepare those delicious dinners for the whole family. Despite all the comments I'm receiving under my YouTube shorts claiming that no one talks like that in real life, this is the way to answer in IELTS Speaking. This test is not a casual chat, although you should be both chatty and friendly. When I say you should give extended answers, you should understand how much to say. In part 1, you only have about 20, max 30 seconds per answer. That's 2 or 3 sentences per question. And if your answer is too long or sounds like you're about to start telling something long like a story, the examiner will most likely interrupt you and move on to the next question, or simply ask the same question again to make you give an answer that's more to the point. The key is to say enough, but not too much. Practice at home with 3 topics. The first is work, studies, home or hometown, and 2 other topics which can vary a lot, from simple ones like reading books or keeping fit to more complex ones like farming or trees. Ask yourself 10 to 12 questions, and your answers should be about 5 minutes long. And if you're wondering where to find those topics, we have a PDF guide with topics from real exams linked in the study plan. Or you can buy our IELTS Speaking library with sample answers and useful vocabulary too. Part 1 is a warm-up, a first impression. The part that really reveals how fluent you are is part 2, a 2-minute talk where you describe a situation or a person. For example, here is a task by the British Consul. Describe something you own which is very important to you. You should say where you got it from, how long you have had it, what you use it for, and explain why it's important to you. You will have to talk about the topic for 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to think about what you're gonna say, and you can make some notes to help you if you wish. Although the task suggests talking for 1 to 2 minutes, you should really aim to talk for the full 2 minutes until your time is up and the examiner stops you. If you don't finish your talk, don't worry about it. Unlike IELTS writing, where you must follow the bullet points, in IELTS speaking, they're here to help you. You don't have to follow the order. It's more important to tell a coherent story where you develop your ideas and link your thoughts. Saying that, make sure you cover the last bullet point, explain why. It allows you to use more complex vocabulary and grammar, which is good for your score. Again, practice at home with a timer. You need to learn how much you can say in 2 minutes and practice giving those answers. What about part 3? That's where you'll be asked more serious and abstract questions, somehow related to part 2. For example, do you think that buying a home is always better than renting one? You can't just say something like, absolutely, buying is way better. I'm planning to buy my first home as soon as I can. No. First, it's too personal. In part 3, don't talk about yourself, give abstract answers. Second, it's too short. Give extended answers up to 45 or 60 seconds each. Third, it's too simple. You need to give nuanced responses, weighing pros and cons, and maintaining a more formal tone and using more complex vocabulary and grammar. Here is an example. It depends really. While owning a home can provide stability and prove more beneficial in the long term, it also comes with responsibilities such as maintenance and property taxes. On the other hand, renting offers flexibility and may be more affordable in the short term. Ultimately, what's better for each person varies based on their circumstances and preferences. In this part, examiners have an outline of possible questions, but they word them depending on your answers. So it's a bit more like a discussion than part 1, which comes with a list of questions. Vocabulary and grammar in part 3 should also be more formal and complex than in part 1 to express more advanced ideas. Generally, preparing for your speaking test is very important. This part may feel particularly intimidating if you're not used to speaking English much. So to prepare, answer part 1, 2, and 3 topics with a timer. Record yourself, listen to your answers, and see what you can improve. And practice answering common and challenging topics. Now, IELTS listening. I remember that my first impression of IELTS listening was that it was simply overwhelming. There's just so much going on. You're reading questions, at the same time you're listening to the recording. And while you're trying to figure out how to spell this word, the next question comes. However, with just over a week of practice, I managed to get the top score. In the very first IELTS test I ever took to study for my master's degree in the UK, I scored a band 9 in IELTS listening, even though my overall score was 7.5 at the time. Actually, the listening section helped me to push my overall score up, and I believe there is a great opportunity for you too. If you know these 3 things about IELTS listening, the test won't be overwhelming for you anymore, and it will actually be quite manageable. So first of all, have a look at these questions. In which order would you answer them? I guess here it's pretty obvious. You're gonna answer number 1, then 2, 3, and 4. What about this task? We have a map with a number of locations, A, B, C, D, and then some questions at the bottom. Well, follow the questions. First you'll hear about number 15, then 16, 17, and so on. Similarly, look at the matching features question. In the box, we have a number of options, A, B, C, D. Just like in other question types, you should follow the numbers at the bottom. All IELTS listening questions come in order. Following the question numbers helps, but if you're trying to read and listen at the same time, it's still too much. In the test, there is some time before each group of questions to read them. And in section 1, where questions are shorter, there is enough time. But if you have long multiple choice questions like these, well, let's try. You hear the official instructions. Follow them.
Section 3. You will hear Stephanie, who is thinking about taking a one-year course in children's literature, talking to Trevor, who is currently taking the course. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
So, could you read all of them? I find that the time provided in the test is not quite sufficient. Can you read them while listening to the recording? It would be tricky. So here is the solution I found. At the end of each IELTS listening section, they give you 30 seconds to revise your answers. So don't do that. Spend this time on reading questions coming next. You can check your answers in the extra time after the test. Okay, you follow the question order. You read them in advance. What else can make this test a bit easier? Well, you should prepare for each type of question in IELTS listening. Understand the instructions before the test so you can fully concentrate on the information. Luckily, there are only 4 question types. Half of your questions will be filling the blanks, also called filling the gaps or missing words, where you need to write down usually one word or a number and a word. Another question type that is used in all tests is multiple choice questions, where you need to select one answer among 3 options or 2 answers among 5 options. And then we have maps and matching information or matching features. You're going to get one of them, not both. Some of these questions are easier than others, and I asked my students to vote for the most difficult questions, and I fully agree with their opinion. The most difficult type is multiple choice questions. I think that's because there is so much to read. Then maps, matching information, and finally filling the blanks. Prepare for each type of these questions, spending more time on those you find more challenging. I actually have video lessons on each type with some practice questions, and all these YouTube lessons are linked in my study plan. Now, here are a few IELTS listening tips that can help you. Remember, each option is only discussed once. The answer won't change. Once you found your answer, move on to the next question. If you missed an answer, don't try to figure out what it was straight away. Instead, move on to the next question and try to answer those you missed at the end of the test. If you're not sure what the answer is, don't spend too much time thinking about it. Mark the question to review and switch to the next one. And don't leave questions unanswered. After the test, you get either 10 minutes of extra time if you take IELTS on paper, or 2 minutes if you take it on a computer. Use this time to answer any questions you left unanswered. Make your best guess. You don't lose points for incorrect answers. And be careful about your spelling. If you make a typo in a word, this answer won't be counted. So whether you use British or American spelling, doesn't matter, both are acceptable. There is one thing a lot of students do that keeps them stuck making the same mistakes over and over. So to do that, you need some official practice tests by Cambridge English, which are just like the real tests. Tests prepared by other companies may be easier or more difficult or just slightly different. You want authentic tests. Any recent book from number 15 and up will do. Once you take a practice test, count how many questions you've answered correctly. But don't close the book. Go back and analyze every mistake and try to figure out why you got it wrong. This is the only way to learn from your mistakes instead of repeating them. All this preparation can be completed pretty quickly. But if you notice that you answer some questions incorrectly because you couldn't hear something in the recording while you understand the answer on paper, it means you should work on your listening skills. In my study plan, I give some exercises that can help you. And if you take your exam on paper, book a test center that gives earphones. Most do, but not all. And if you take your exam on a computer, then you definitely get your earphones. Let's talk about IELTS reading. Do you run out of time before you can even attempt to answer all the questions? If you do, you're definitely not alone. To be honest, there is a lot to read. Another typical difficulty is that you may not understand everything. IELTS reading requires the widest vocabulary out of all IELTS sections. And some passages include pretty technical terms, especially in IELTS Academic. So most likely, there will be some words you simply don't know. The key is to select which information you pay your attention to and which you can, well, I wouldn't say disregard, but skim over. To do that, you need to understand where to look for your answers. Here is good news. Most IELTS reading questions, not all, but most, come in order. This means you can read the first question and then start reading the passage quickly just to get the general idea until you find a place where the answer is. Then you slow down, read the question again, read the sentence or sentences in the passage, select your answer. Don't rush here. Pay attention to details because many answers depend on details. And then read the next question and resume skimming the passage until you locate the next answer, and so on. Here are the question types that come in order. Missing words or filling in the blanks. Choose one word or choose not more than 2 words. True, false, not given questions. Do the following statements agree with the information in the passage? And yes, no, not given questions. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the author? Please note that if you find a couple of yes, no, not given questions right at the end of your test, questions 38 to 40, they may not come in order. In other cases, they do. Sentence endings. Complete each sentence with the correct ending, and multiple choice questions with 4 options and 1 answer. These questions come in order, but what if you get matching headings? Choose the correct heading for each section. Here, we cannot read the first question and then look for an answer, right? Instead, read the first paragraph or section, and then read all the headings and find the one which describes it best. Then read the second section, and so on. Although these questions don't come in order, you can still answer them while you're reading the passage for the first time. Other question types that don't come in order are 2 other matching questions, matching paragraphs, or which paragraph or section contains the following information, and matching information. Match each statement with the correct, let's say, explorer. Please note that in some of these questions, you may use each option more than once, and usually you will use one of them twice. Then, multiple choice questions with 5 options and 2 correct answers. So, 1 answer in order, 2 answers not in order. And finally, questions at the very end of your test may not be in order. That's a lot of information to grasp right now, but when you start practicing, it will all make sense. I know one of the recommended IELTS reading techniques is to quickly read the whole passage first and then start answering questions. And I think it's great for people who read in English with the speed comparable to that of their first language. However, if you read in English relatively slowly, I think it's best to try to answer questions while reading the passage for the first and perhaps only time. A very important part of IELTS reading is keywords. These are the words that can help you locate your answer, such as name, dates, locations, which will be repeated in the passage. Other keywords may be paraphrased, so don't look for an exact word match, look for the same meaning. Highlight or underline keywords to remind yourself what you're looking for while reading the passage. So, keywords that help you locate your answer may be repeated or paraphrased. However, words that determine the correct answer are always paraphrased. Be prepared for that. As for the words you don't know, sometimes they don't determine the answer. They're just there in the passage. But even if you don't know them, it doesn't really matter as long as you remember what you're looking for. Think keywords. Sometimes unfamiliar words do matter, but before giving up on your answer, try to guess what a certain word means from the context and choose the most probable answer. And don't believe those hacks telling you don't have to read everything, that instead you can just look for certain words or only read the first and the last sentence of each paragraph. They don't work. While you're navigating through the test, remember that questions progressively get harder. So you should try to finish the first section in about 15 minutes, or even less, depending on your English skills, to keep 20 minutes for the second section and 25 for the third. How quickly you can go through the test depends on your level, and that's something you should discover for yourself while doing practice tests at home. But generally, try not to spend too much time on any single question. If you can't answer it, just move on. If you spend too much time trying to answer a question that is particularly difficult for you, you may lose the opportunity to answer questions you could answer. Similarly to IELTS listening, highlight keywords, cross out incorrect answers, and attempt to answer each question even if you're just making a guess, and analyze your mistakes. If you notice that a certain question type is particularly challenging for you, definitely practice more. The usual suspects are matching headings, true, false not given, and yes, no not given questions. And number 3 is multiple choice. I have detailed YouTube lessons on each of them. All the steps for your preparation I'm mentioning now are listed in my free IELTS study plan, where you can also find links to resources and lessons for each step. You can download it in the video description right now. If you follow the plan, your preparation will feel much more manageable. Try to plan your schedule in such a way that you study a little bit as often as possible, ideally every day. If you study 1 hour a day for 7 days, you'll memorize so much more than if you do those 7 hours in one go. So, make a plan and stick to it. Remember, IELTS is an exam that is meant to be passed. Everyone can pass it. It just may require more or less time depending on your English skills and what score you need. But keep on going and you'll get there. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!